with all of our introductions. Hopefully the captions will show up as well for anyone needing that. Okay, so we are doing tonight's workshop is key life skills for caregiver success. I'm going to start off with the introductions in our agenda and just sort of go through from there. And hopefully everything cooperates tonight, my mouse and everything else. Um, okay, so again, just so you guys know what you're in for, some people like to know around about how long they're going to be sitting here. What are we going to get through? So these are just a couple of the bullet points that we'll cover, the major sections that we'll cover for this workshop. So the introduction of myself and our projects at Vision for Equality. Why do these skills even matter? Why are we even talking about this? What are those skills? How we connect those skills to what we actually do in life, making them practical, and just final thoughts on this topic. So again, I'm Sherelle Robinson. I'm a family navigator with systems navigation, as well as part of the trauma-informed team at Vision for Equality. I am a certified trauma-sensitive professional, and I've done this work in different capacities in human services, as well as a legal support professional helping individuals. Mainly in the mental health sector, I have been a program counselor, as well as done some case management. I'm sort of doing the same thing in this realm with Vision for Equality. But what brought me here and connected me to Vision is the fact that I am a mother of a child who is neurodivergent. So I have two daughters. One is 16, the other is almost 5. So my almost 5-year-old is the one who's on the spectrum, and she has some medical complexities as well. That's who I think will knock at any moment. She doesn't care when I'm giving presentations. But my experience with that, with caregiving, as well as caregiving for my late father, as well as my grandmother who had dementia, and just seeing other individuals makes me have incredible empathy for individuals with disabilities, as well as caregivers like myself. So Shu is our program manager for both systems navigation and trauma-informed care. She is not here, but she is one of our main contacts for anybody who wants to reach out, get some more information, or get signed up with under any of the projects. So this is a little bit of Shu's background, that she is an independent mental health and inclusion consultant, aside from the program managing that she does here. And she identifies as differently able. She's also a parent and caregiver of children who have different abilities. And her main focus really is helping individuals with different abilities and their caregivers lead fulfilling lives, just like I mentioned about that being my focus, really increasing the quality of life of individuals like us. So the Philadelphia Family Support Projects, this is sort of the tree and the branches of Vision for Equality. This isn't all of them, but this is under the Philadelphia Family Support Projects. So the 3 programs are systems navigation, which I mentioned I'm a part of as a family navigator, trauma-informed care, which this sort of workshop falls under. So basically the trainings and things like that, which I'll elaborate on a little bit, in the Birth to 5 project. So systems navigation, basically we provide resources for those who are 6 years old to the end of the lifespan, who come into contact with the disability systems and just need some peer support or a little bit of guidance as to where to go for different things. And again, it's more so to provide that one-to-one support from a person who can identify with your journey, to decrease families' feelings of isolation during this time while navigating these disability systems. And as I mentioned, the trauma-informed care project, trainings like these are a part of that project. So caregiver workshops that helps us identify different ways to approach different issues that we have that are unique to us, as well as peer-to-peer support is also a part of this project. There is a first come, first serve referral for therapy sessions with a partner that we have. Then this first come, first serve obviously is based on funding, because those are funded by Vision for Equality. And there's also the monthly support groups that happen. under the Trauma Informed Care Project as well. And lastly, there's the Birth to Five Project, which is obviously from infants to 5 years old, who might be just about to get diagnoses, or they're seeking a diagnosis and more answers, or after diagnosis of different disabilities. So just supporting families in that way, and in a way that is unique to them, because a lot happens in that age range from birth to five. So basically connecting them to resources, um, and empowering families just like we do in systems navigation, providing a safe space, and even sharing the life course tools, which help families plan goals, whether they're small, like looking for a school for a child, or you're moving out of the state, or you're trying to determine what services you want. Usually you can go through the life course tools trainings to help you identify ways that you can set those goals and actually meet them. So on to, why do these skills even matter? Why are we even bothering basically talking about this? So basically, life skills in general, they help us make uh, they help make us more capable in navigating either the everyday that we go through that's really unique to us, or those spontaneous moments that seem like they're trying to squeeze every bit of energy that we have, from the continuous medical appointments to continuous therapy appointments to things that we do in the home, the daily care, or the mental labor that we do, worrying about when we have to schedule things, worrying about when things expire, when we have to uh, run certain errands or set up different activities for our loved one. Um, all of those things require skills. So life skills particularly help us make informed and better decisions while we're doing those things. So basically the skills that we need while we're meeting life's demands. And without skills, obviously you can't take care of anything. And most people don't step up to handle these really tough issues that caregivers step up and do. So that's why it's really important for us to actually develop those skills and foster those skills, and connect to others who have those skills as well. Maybe they can give you information about how to even go about developing them. And developing life skills, I believe, gives us the best chance possible for leading a better life. So that's why it's really important. In addition to that, it's really important to note who is helping. So looking at this quote here, family members provide 85% of unpaid informal caregiving to older adults in the United States. So we're not even talking about individuals who um, address younger children or babies and things like that, but this is just a statistic um, with regards to older adults. So just thinking about the people who are helping the most are not people who chose the caregiving field. They are not people who went to school for it. Um, they might not have received specific training. They might just be regular individuals who decided to step up and help a loved one. So if you're coming from no background in these very specific things, you're going to need some skills to do this. And to be in the best mindset while you're doing this really rigorous stuff on a daily basis, where you don't have a relief. There isn't like the next nurse coming that's going to relieve you sometimes. So there are a lot of like mental and practical skills that we need to develop in order to get through that. And essentially as caregivers, sometimes we're sometimes thrust into the role. We didn't really select it. So it's important for us to know that what we need to do and what we need to actually know to make things easier for ourselves and the people that we care for. And it's also important that caregivers give themselves a fighting chance for a quality of life. So that's why it's important to have certain skills as well. I'm not sure why my screen paused, but um, so what you're capable of actually informs what you can make happen in your life. And I think that that's a really notable thing to take away from this as well. And beside that, the nature of caregiver work, as I hinted on a little bit, many caregiver tasks can seem intrusive or extremely personal, like the daily washing or feeding or just dealing with the body in general can kind of feel intrusive, or making decisions for other people who have been independent for some time before needing your help. So knowing how to do that in a caring manner without making things a little bit worse or more tense, it takes skills to do that as well. So that's what this is here for, to help with. So what actually are some of the key skills for caregiver success? So optimism is one, and sometimes it's a buzzword and really annoying when a lot of people keep saying, look at the positive, when you're just worried about who's going to take on the next appointment because I need a nap. Um, so basically, I want to try my best to reframe it a little bit. Um, how to attain optimism is basically to look at the bigger picture. So if we get bogged down by minute details all the time, or looking at all of the little details only, we can miss the big picture and miss the purpose for doing it. So we become overtaken by how many small details we actually have to cover. So that is why it's really important to sort of step back and remember the big picture, because that helps it feel worth it and more bearable and makes you feel more optimistic. And it can actually be easier to overlook the benefit of some of the smaller progress that we make, if we focus too much on achieving everything. So that's the next thing. Don't focus on achieving everything. That's also a gateway to having some optimism. There's more than one way to achieve goals. Just like if we have to drive to, I'm in Philly, so say we have to drive to Center City. There's so many different ways that you can get to Center City. Um, so you don't have to sort of uh, perfect how to get to a certain point by one means. So that's another way to sort of foster optimism, to not look at it in such a rigid way. And another thing is to note that having optimism helps us bring balance. So just like I just hinted on, if we're not bogged down by all of the little details and we look at the bigger picture, or we can focus on some of the things that we can do as opposed to everything, that helps you view things in a more balanced way, as opposed to being extreme on one end or extreme on the other end. And that enables you to be able to have that optimism and feel better. And sometimes you're more of a joy to be around if you're more optimistic, as opposed to being a pessimist, um, or overtaken by your caretaking duties, or if you have your own disability. And essentially, optimism is a form of positive thinking. So I rolled my eyes earlier at the buzz phrase positive thinking, but that's essentially what it is. It's a form of it, but it's not. Optimism is not only positive thinking, but it is a form of it, and it does play a role, and it is important. So in addition to this, a form of positive thinking that can turn into a benefit is the overarching, I guess, focus of optimism, I could say. But gratitude can help it come about. And that's another buzzword as well, but gratitude is my favorite because it's proven the most to me. I heard it a lot. I rolled my eyes at it a lot because um, in therapy or different groups or talking to different individuals, they'll tell you, if you just find what you're grateful for, these certain things will come about. But when you're in the midst of everything, you kind of, you can't subscribe to that. It's not easy to. But if you try just a little bit in little ways, it works. I've lived it. And it can really sustain you through tough times, both gratitude and optimism itself. So I find gratitude to be the easiest way to arrive at optimism. That's why I like it so much. So it's like the shortcut to optimism to me. Um, and basically just looking at everyday things that help us or make us happy can really put us in a state of awe or feeling grateful for having experienced it. So when you create a bunch of little moments like that, it ends up creating a big benefit. So that's why I really like gratitude to get toward optimism. And I recommend that you guys use it as well. So how to create it? We keep talking about how good it is, but and what it is, but how do we actually get it? Um, some ways that you can get it is to envelop yourself in success stories, including your own success story. I really love biographies, and especially athletes, because athletes in particular show a certain kind of determination. They show, they demonstrate positive failure. So failing, but um, actually doing well later. Um, and using resources within us and around us is something that a lot of biographies talk about as well. And usually if you can read biographies and get these bits of information, you can see how you can apply that in your own life. And that's why I really love biographies for enveloping myself in success stories. And again, including your own success story. It might not feel like a success story sometimes when you're dealing with a disability or a loved one who has it, and everything is sort of riding on you. But just think about how far you've come, even if it's just looking at one day, not even a full year or something like that. But if you just think about what you've accomplished or got through in one day, I think that can be its own success story if you don't think that your whole life story is a success story just yet. Also being deliberate about staying light. So what I mean is there are certain things in the world that can draw your energy from you. People, posts that you see on social media, things that you watch, news that you might listen to, um, people that you might sit around and how they look and what their energy is. Um, Being deliberate about keeping some distance from those things or limiting those things or completely replacing them with other things that make you feel light as opposed to heavy and weighed down. Those things are easy ways to create optimism. So there's also a previous workshop that we did about color psychology and the different emotions that are that come up from using different colors. And so things like that, being intentional about the colors you use in different rooms can help you um, can help with what you actually feel. The things that you tell yourself in self-talk, or like if you make a mistake, saying like, "Oh, that was so stupid," or that was ridiculous. Obviously, that's not helpful. That's very disempowering. So being mindful about the things that you tell yourself, and being gentle with yourself. Like you wouldn't say that to your child. You would tell them how it's okay and people make mistakes and things like that. I challenge us to use that same language with ourselves so that we can build our optimism muscle. um as I mentioned, things that you watch or listen to, what you're around, whether you let yourself take a walk or be surrounded by greenery and things like that, all of those things are helpful. Also, if you stay away from things that chip away at your optimism, that can really help you create it as well. So obviously, if you um, some of the things, some of the cognitive distortions that are noted, and the resource that we use here is going to be at the end and in that resource document that I mentioned, are, I know some of you guys can find yourself in at least one of these cognitive distortions, because we all do it, we're human. Um, Personalizing things. So for instance, if we approach someone and they didn't give us back the energy that we gave them, and maybe they had an attitude, and we sort of took that on as if it was personal toward us, when really it might just be something different. Maybe they're at a time where they're grieving, or maybe they don't feel well, or maybe they just didn't notice how their tone was. So personalizing, subscribing to all enough nothing thinking. So looking at things in black and white, like there's no gray area. Life is all gray area almost. So obviously that's not realistic to think that way, and it's not helpful. Jumping to conclusions, mislabeling things, shoulding. A lot of caregivers subscribe to, we should ourselves to death, meaning I should have done this, I should have gone that way, oh, I should have never taken that, um, taken this down and, switched it for this, or whatever the case is. Um, that just creates a lot of doubt and decisions you've already made. But you made the decision based off of what you remember and what you knew at that moment. And you deserve to not have that berated. So really a lot of this is about offering compassion to yourself. And when you offer yourself compassion, you can offer it to others easily as well. So everybody wins. when we're more optimistic. Also, I want to talk a little bit about minimizing and maximizing. So sometimes we minimize the things that we do. Um, a lot of caregivers talk a lot about, well, this was just the right thing to do. Yeah, but it's something that a lot of people don't do. So don't minimize what you do. You don't have to be um boisterous about, a lot of the things that you do, but still don't minimize it. Let it hold the stature that it naturally holds. And you can be honored by that. Maximizing and catastrophizing. This was a best friend in the past. Catastrophizing, my mind could very easily jump to the worst case scenario from one thing to the next. So I could think, oh gosh, as soon as I get dressed, it's going to be really hot. Then once I go outside, it's going to be loud. And then when I get in the car, I'm probably going to have a headache because I was hot and it was loud. That's catastrophizing. And that's really easy to do. So these are things that will eat up your optimism, and break it down. So staying away from these things is a way for um, actually building it up as opposed to doing the opposite. Let me see if I can to curiosity. So curiosity is I don't think curiosity gets as much credit as it deserves. Um, I say as a caregiver, this skill has helped me move away from the cognitive distortions that I talked about, like personalizing. Um, because if you begin personalizing things, you can sort of lead your way into um, feeling helpless, or if you already have negative self-talk and you personalize how somebody treated you, that can sort of com- falsely confirm what you're thinking about yourself. So that's why it's important to stay away from those things. But if you become curious, as opposed to upset or taking it personal, um, it usually turns you in a different direction. I'll sort of explain how. So curiosity is a youthful trait, and it's something that we're actually born with. If you think about babies, um, babies are constantly, wide-eyed and looking wherever the sounds are or wherever they might feel a whiff of cool air or something like that. We're all naturally curious, but we lose it because being curious has usually gotten us something during our life that didn't feel too good. So we stopped. We stopped looking because we didn't want to find what we were looking for. So other things of life sort of make us scale back our curiosity as we get older, like fear, or feeling the need to self-protect, or feeling the need to control something, or just being hyper focused on responsibility and not enjoyment. Those are the things that take us away from being curious. But curiosity can lead us to positive surprises. It can make challenging times or events more tolerable. It activates our interests and can help you discover why you feel how you do in particular situations. It can also help you make sense of the world around you. And that's the main one that resonates for me. That curiosity helps us make sense of the world around us. So um, sometimes it supports us to not even question why maybe someone was negative toward you or something like that. Because it might just not be worth it. You pick your battles. We have a lot of battles as caregivers during a day, so pick them. Sometimes it doesn't serve us to dive too deep into somebody else's stuff. Um, but sometimes when you do, well, why do they feel like that? Or why do I feel like that? Or why do they do this? It can sort of take you into explorative thoughts as opposed to negative thoughts. And you end up coming off of that first negative thought that you even started with. Your mind is off to something else that might be more positive. And that's why I really love curiosity as one of the skills. It creates processing time that lets in emotional intelligence, which could be bolstered to foster connection. So what I mean is, usually if you become curious about something, that makes you stop and say, so why is that? And usually if you can pause, that allows in the time to think. Usually if everything is sort of jumbled together, um, that is sort of when all of the emotions sort of run on top of each other and you don't get a chance to really think through things. Um, and that's sometimes how teenagers or children children function. And their decisions aren't usually the best. So that's why curiosity actually serves us. It's not childish or, things like that. It truly serves us as adults, especially as caregivers. So basically, when you can let in that emotional intelligence and you can finally think for a moment, that can make you be more gentle with yourself and then with other people or giving them grace. And that's what I meant by it goes from curiosity to having some emotional intelligence to now I can connect because I'm actually being softer. And that's why it's really helpful. So also with curiosity, um, it helps us reappraise situations. That's really important as well. Another buzzword I'm going to use is reframing. We talk about reframing so much in our workshops. And this is just another way of putting that. So a lot of times the way that we look at a situation is it determines how we feel about it. So usually if you can just change how you're viewing it, you can change how you feel. And curiosity can be your key to doing that. So if you become curious about something and can question it, raise better questions about a situation, it can help you reframe how you're looking at it. And that can obviously, like I said, change your feelings. And changing your feelings can actually change your health. So that's how great curiosity is. It's just a positive trickle down effect, depending on how you use it. Um, Again, it could lead you to things that you're in awe of, and being in awe actually creates positive health impacts as well. Um, Actually, on brain scans, there was a study that showed that when a person is in awe or they're really amazed by something, even if it's like an everyday thing, their nervous system functions the same way as it does if you're in meditation or deep prayer. So, and that's science. That's physical changes that you can see on a brain scan. So I'm all for something like that where there's proof of it. Obviously, humor. I use humor a lot, and humor can be a saving grace for us. It's everywhere. YouTube videos, apps on our TVs, things that we can listen to. Obviously, individuals whose company we can enjoy, and the added benefit is the physical benefit. Um, Obviously it said that laughing, and especially rigorous laughing can exercise your abs, and it burns about 40 calories if you're laughing between 10 and 15 minutes. So watch the sitcom and it can help you become a better caregiver. Don't feel guilty about it. Creativity is huge because for caregivers we tend to have to um find all of the solutions that nobody else is giving us. And that requires creativity. We have to adapt to a lot of times improv in the moment, and that takes creativity. But creativity is is a positive for caregivers because it provides opportunity for expression. And if we use this in our households or with individuals that we care for, it can make everybody feel heard, as opposed to sometimes it can feel like the person who is being cared for is the only one who matters, and that's who we need to focus on all the time. But if we do something creative, it gives all of us a time to share something. Another way to positively reframe something. So our daily tasks that we have to do every day, it feels monotonous and boring. And like sometimes your life might be going down a black hole. It feels like if I do this activity one more time, if I give her this medication one more time this week, like my head is going to blow. Usually if you reframe certain tasks like that, you can reframe those daunting tasks and moments into something else. So creative tasks can provide a means for focusing on things other than caregiving or the disability itself or the future diagnoses that we're worried about. And it gives us a moment to pause and look at situations differently. And it could be a path to self-compassion as well, which we talked about before. It seems like it's a key to a lot of different things, but not humor. So generally, creativity is important because um, what our individual needs are, what our preferred expressions are what we're sharing. So it creates a sort of freedom within us, and that's needed by caregivers. I think the most. In addition, obviously it's noted here that it leads to greater flexibility, openness, and resilience. But addressing mental health can require creativity, because sometimes when we get to a mental health crossroads, it feels like everything I've done has got me to this point and I'm in the same place. So I need to do something different. And that's obviously where creativity comes from. And it helps with something that's really important called ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is that's been a companion of mine as well on my caregiver journey. I wonder if that's the case for you guys. Ambiguous loss is that grief that's felt for something that's not fully closed yet. So, for instance, with say maybe a physical loss, a death, that's over. But ambiguous loss could be, I have this diagnosis and I don't know how bad it'll get. And for instance, I'll use my family as an example. If my child is almost 5 years old and she has, say for, I'll use her autism. So having autism, I don't know what her autism will look like when she's 15 or when she's 30 or 60. And none of us get a forever ticket. None of us get a ticket to live forever, um, to help our loved ones. So that's really scary for me to think about what that time in life might look like for her and for myself, or what I thought it might look like. Um, and grieving the possibility of that never happening. That is ambiguous loss. It's just open-ended. Um, so ambiguous loss can include things like loss of connections. Maybe, like, I know for myself, I didn't expect to have a child with medical issues. Um, so I didn't expect to be isolated from people because they don't understand our journey. And I'm just tired of over explaining things. So I lost connections because of that. I didn't I didn't sign up for that. I didn't know that that was going to happen. So that's ambiguous loss. These people still exist, but those connections aren't there. So it's almost like something that you feel you could have, but you don't have it, and you don't know what to do with it either. That is ambiguous loss. Or physical absence of a particular person, or loss of an opportunity or dream job. I say another ambiguous loss that I thought about as a special needs parent is, I always thought that I would live in a loft somewhere during certain years of my life. My child is too loud. I can't live in a loft. I can't live in a certain high rise. Or she likes to singing really loud. She likes to stomp to get some of the energy out. That's an ambiguous loss for me, that I thought I would be able to enjoy, living in a certain place, but I have to live in a space that is conducive to how my family functions. So that's an ambiguous loss. Those are examples. And that is why, going back to the main thing, creativity is really important. I had to get creative about, how can I create, what was it that I love so much about a loft? Is it something that I could create to simulate that, but in a space that functions best for my family? So that's what I mean by, even though we experience things like this, and ambiguous loss is a really heavy thing for caregivers, your creativity can help you um, address that. So the next thing is forward thinking. Um, I'm just tired thinking about forward thinking. As caregivers, we tend to have to think ahead for so many things, because so many things um, are happening, whether we need a pause or not. And oftentimes we're the only ones who can do it. Or sometimes caregivers are, um, we can be very particular about the way we want things done, so that we can feel um, it's done right. I won't have to worry about it if it's done like this. So a lot of times we have to do a lot of forward thinking, and this is a huge skill for some caregivers. But a lot of people, depending on your personality type or just what you're inclined to, you might not be able to look beyond this very moment. What are my immediate needs? But this is a skill that needs to be fostered, because it's helpful for caregivers. It basically reduces some of the anxiety you might feel about situations. Even if you're pre-planning things, you can actually make better decisions and be more efficient. Um, if you're making better decisions and things are running more smoothly, obviously you're not going to feel as anxious as you might feel if things are just, if you're flying by the seat of your pants with appointments or errands, like making arrangements for outings or, like I said, sort of trying to be proactive with planning things, even planning for challenges or trying to foresee what some of those needs might be for yourself or what those needs might be for the person you're caring for. That's a lot of mental labor. But forward thinking is helpful in that. So basically, knowing what we have access to, and what we can do if we find ourselves in a particular situation, that can actually make us feel stronger and more confident and more capable, and empowered to keep going as a caregiver. And that's why it's the most important. Next is resourcefulness. We're always being looked to for finding what tools we need, or what resource we need, to handle particular issues, whether you have a disability or you're a caregiver. But thinking outside the box is a part of that, considering more ideas. That goes back to exactly what I said earlier about there are so many different ways, as an example, in Philadelphia to get to Center City. So you have to consider, if I go this way, maybe it's scenic and this person can enjoy the ride as opposed to feel their anxiety about being in a car. So all of those things sort of tie into each other, being forward thinking, being creative, being resourceful, they all kind of tie to each other. I'm getting ahead of myself too, because I think that's in a future slide. But resourcefulness basically opens us up to greater accomplishment. So if we can gather more resources, then we can identify better, faster, more fun ways to do all of the things that we have to do. And we do a lot. So this is important. And again, even if you have limited resources, um, there's no limit to your ideas. So I think that's the best thing about this, that even if you feel like you don't have a lot of resources for a particular area, maybe getting respite. So meaning getting someone to sort of relieve you for a few hours or whatever the case is, you still have unlimited ideas about, or can develop unlimited ideas about how can you handle that type of situation. And basically it improves, obviously, caregiver emotional outcomes if we have more resources or know more about what we should do with what we have and how to do it, how to develop resourcefulness, is practicing it. So all of these are sort of muscles that we have to flex in order for them to get bigger. And compassion is, obviously a key if you're a caregiver, and not just compassion for other people, but compassion for yourself. And we talk so much about how much compassion actually reduces stress and burnout, and can improve the morale between family members and providers if it exists between all of us. So everybody having compassion for each other. So even if we tie back creativity, and maybe you guys, maybe your family or who you're caring for, you do an art activity that expresses some of the things that you desire, maybe some of the ambiguous losses you felt, um, but you express that creatively in an activity with your family. That might be a way of opening up compassion to yourself, and family members can open up compassion to you as well. And obviously that would increase the morale between you. So that's what I mean by all of these skills can actually just overlap with each other. Compassion, as I mentioned, extends beyond just having compassion for the person that we're caring for, but also or the staff that help us on a daily basis, but extending it to yourself. And it means to extend space and opportunity. So not just um, having compassion where, excuse me, having compassion where um, you give a person a chance to speak, but also giving them the space to feel the things that they need to feel when they need to feel them, as opposed to um, making them dial it back for your comfort or doing that to yourself. So compassion is really important, self or toward others. Compassion can actually make a person feel empowered to reach out for support because it minimizes shame. So as opposed to feeling a person feeling berated or like what they feel is a joke or it's minimized, um, it can make a person feel supported. And when you feel supported, you feel strong. And that wipes away any shame that you might feel about the things that you're feeling, because it's normalized and it's acknowledged, it's held up and validated. And that's why it's really important to have it. And you usually can find this a lot in workshops or support groups and things like that. And that's why I think it's important for us to reach out so that we can find compassion for us, um, that can take us, beyond what we feel in some moments. Now, lastly, connecting the dots. How do these skills even fit into our world as caregivers? Um, I explained that in a lot of different ways because we talked about a lot of different skills, but how these skills fit into our world as caregivers in a general sense is we're basically in this role and took on this responsibility. Um, and we need the skills that we need to do this job well. It's a job to do this job well. It's a job from love, though. Um, and when we strengthen that skill, we can perform it as expected, or we can perform it better. And once we do that, we can create the quality of life that actually serves us over the long term. And this is sort of a cycle that everything sort of cycles back to each part. And that I feel that that's sort of how these skills can, show up in our lives if we continue to use them, continue to strengthen them, and realize their importance. And the final thoughts here, um, success is said to involve having happiness in what we do, happiness in who we are, and happiness in how we do things. And therefore, because of that, it's subjective. So nobody can ever tell you success is this, because success is whatever you determine it is. What it is that you want to feel, what it is that your loved one wants to feel or needs. So I want you to sort of define that for yourself. And more than the immediate moment is impacted by our actions. So it's important to try our best. So beyond the moment that we're in right now, our family interactions are impacted by things we do, feel, and say. Our career, our hobbies and interests, our health, our growth, our finances, all of these different things are impacted. So it's really important to strengthen the skills that we need to create the success that we want, so that all of these areas in our life can be impacted how we want them to. And this is my information and Shu's information. I'm going to leave this screen up if anybody wants to take that information down. And the references are here. Um, Again, you guys will get this presentation and the recording as well, and the resource document. So you'll get all of the information, but it does show some here. But this is the contact information that I'll leave up. And if you guys have any questions or any comments, definitely unmute or put it in the chat before I'm going to stop sharing though, so it can be private.